Well, welcome. We are backstage here at Newport Folk. I have been joined by one of my favorite artists of 2015, Julien Baker. Thank you so much for taking the time for us today.
Of course, I appreciate it. It's my pleasure.
And then so, I don't want to say great set because you already performed. I know it's going to be a great set. I saw you in the Sinclair in April with Phoebe Bridgers.
Oh, that was the Sinclair in Boston,
yes.
or Cambridge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was one of my favorite shows of that tour.
I was going to ask because the crowd got really into it. Does that usually happen?
No, it doesn't usually happen. I mean, it's an interesting dynamic with the crowd always, like you never know what you're going to get, but that's one of my favorite parts of touring, right? Mm-hmm. But I love playing in Boston because the crowds are notoriously engaged. Mm-hmm. So there are some times where I'll play shows and people will be very quiet and respectful and nice, and I appreciate that. I'm like, wow, thank you for, because sometimes you get a crowd that's like, not paying attention at all, and I don't mind that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mind when I play like a festival set at like some other festival and it's like loud, because it kind of diverts attention from me and makes me relax. But it was like both at the Sinclair. People were getting excited and kind of like energized, but like in a very plugged in way. No. And it's funny, like Boston treats every show like it's a hardcore show. There were those kids jumping up and down to Everybody Does, and I was like, what are you doing?
And some headbanging. That was
awesome, the headbanging to my music. I thought I was so excited that I started to smile uncontrollably in the middle of Everybody Does, and then like immediately burst into laughter because I realized how ironic it was that I'm beaming and saying lyrics like, I'm a piece of garbage. Yeah. But it was a cool moment and everybody laughed. It was fun.
I was right next to the girls who were like screaming to rejoice. I'm like, I don't know how this is going to go over, but I was happy that you weren't offended because it's like such an intense song that I was like,
it's so hard to offend me. Like any show, I'm just like, all right, this is the vibe. But it blows my mind when I hear people singing because I think, how lucky, someone took the time to learn my lyrics. Like, that's incredible. It's a feeling like nothing else,
Well, and I was going to say, your fan base is great. One of the things that I saw that someone said to you sort of like meeting you was, thank you for being who you are.
Oh, wow.
I think that's a great sentiment, but to sort of ask one of those like Charlie Rose very open-ended questions, who are you?
Oh, man. Well, so that's interesting. I think the songs kind of portray, they're really specific, and the imagery is like all centered around really dark subject matter. Yeah. So perhaps they give you like a slice of life, like a little bit of insight into the experiences contained within my whole life. But there are so many more beyond that, Mm-hmm. Whoa, that sounds trite. I'm so much more than my sadness. But truly, I try to find ways to, in between the songs, be goofy or imbue the sadness of the set with a little bit of levity or humor, because I would hate for someone to think that the persona that they attach to the sadness of the songs is the only kind of emotional range that I have, I'm like, no, it's I'm a goofball. I'm just an absolute dork, and I feel so bizarre. It's also crazy when people say things like, thanks for being who you are, because I'm just that's like the highest compliment you can give. Yeah, exactly. It's like your mere personhood is like a matter worthy of being thanked for. But then I'm like, well, thank you for coming, and you paid $10 for this ticket, and you bought the record, and you're the reason why I get to do my dream job. So thank you for being who you are, Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, it's sort of like along those lines, especially new artists, journalists have a tendency to sort of just throw labels onto people and see what sticks. Okay. Are there any labels that you found, or maybe some that you found less helpful than others? Oh, man. I try, so not out of any feelings towards the interviewer, but there are some articles that I'll read back or skim, but I try not to put too much stock in comparisons that people make. Some of them actually are very flattering and kind, and those are always cool, but I try not to spend too much time ruminating on those, or even would be aware of many of them. So well, that's a good thing. That's definitely a good aspect, mindset to have, not aspect. You do a ton of these interviews. What do you wish you were asked more? Got a chance to talk about more? Oh man, I'm not sure. I love love stuff like that's more conversational. It's the interviewer will allow the conversation to diverge into like whatever tangential turn the conversation takes. I think one of my favorite interviewers ever said, people ask you so many sad questions, so I made a list of joyful questions.
That's awesome.
And she was like, what's the favorite cup of coffee that you ever had? Like, describe a recent good memory. Like, I was like, whoa, what a novel approach to an interview. I thought that was great.
I like that a lot. That segues perfectly into my next question. We are in Rhode Island. We are in New England. My home state, Massachusetts, is the home to Dunkin Donuts.
Oh, yes!
You are a Dunkin Donuts super fan.
Oh,
the
yeah.
people at my local Dunkin know me by name and order.
Oh,
so I can completely relate to that.
That's amazing.
What is your Dunkin order?
Okay, my Dunkin order is large iced coffee with almond milk.
Almond milk. See, I do large ice with regular milk.
Okay, because that's the thing I love about Dunkin is that it's kind of like they're accommodating to a vegan diet, but I think it must be a fluke. Yeah, kind of like because I couldn't imagine Dunkin is like a huge conglomerate, and I don't think that they were like intentionally going out of their way. It's just very convenient for me. Like Oreos happen to be vegan, but I don't think that the Oreos are on purpose vegan.
I know exactly what you mean.
It's really easy to go to Dunkin' and get a large quantity of coffee for, half the price of other national conglomerates, and it be like I can drink it,
Yeah, and I saw one of the interview that you did in Canada, and they're like, Tim Hortons is just like Dunkin'. I'm like, she's way too polite to say that Tim Hortons cannot hold a candle to Dunkin'.
Tim Hortons is not like Dunkin'.
Tim Hortons is not like Dunkin'.
No.
Good. So one of my favorite things that you say in a shirt that you have is sad songs make me happy.
Oh, sad songs make me feel better. I was gonna wear that shirt today, but it is so hot, and it's like like one of those Hanes beefy tees.
Yeah.
I put it on this morning and thought, oh, no way. But
What do you think it is about sad songs that make people feel happy?
I think it's like what I often say is that the reason why I can be a well-adjusted, not abysmally sad person is because I make sad songs, and those are the channel by which you release those negative emotions. And so I think people are prone to say, if you create art that's dark or sad, you have a predilection towards darkness. And perhaps that's true, but some of the people that I've met that write the darkest songs that I've ever heard are complete goofballs in person, and I think it's that allows them to be who they are. Like there are people who don't create art or like have a release of any kind, or like whatever it is, running or a hobby or like building trains, anything. They don't have that, and I find those people to have a more negative dent towards life,
I so see that.
Yeah.
Matt from The National was the person I met. He was throwing like guacamole across the dressing room, and I'm
That's
like,
hilarious.
It was a joke. It was like a joke to, he's like, I'm a rock star, I can do this. It was funny, but I was expected to be like morose, you know? So it is always good. And yes, I can also attest, you are not as sad as your songs.
Oh, yeah.
Which is good.
Oh, thank you.
So you made this album, Sprained Ankle, with sort of no expectation. When did you know that like this was going to be good? This was going to be something that...
Oh man, I don't know if I know that still. Well, I mean, that sounds like I'm either naive or intentionally eschewing compliments, which I feel like is almost rude, so I won't do that. So thank you for saying it's like a good thing, but
it's one of my favorite albums of 2015.
Oh wow, thank you. I just never imagined that it would be, successful. I know I'm not like playing Madison Square Garden. I don't have a warped view of success, but compared to any aspirations I had, it's so far exceeded anything. When we started working with Amanda, my publicist, and she said the song is going to be on NPR, I was like, oh, that's a good joke. No one cares. Like, no one cares. I don't know. I think that was one thing. That was surreal for quite a while after. But it still doesn't always feel normal or like, which I almost hope it doesn't, Some people, I had somebody ask me before a show, they were like, I was playing a large venue and they said, are you nervous? I said, yes. They said, but you do this is your job. And I thought, well, God, I would want somebody to slap me across the face if I ever thought that playing in front of hundreds of people was routine or something to regard as monotonous or everyday. Like, I hope that I'm always thankful and surprised by opportunities that come up, and I never become entitled, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, opening for one of your musical idols, Death Cab,
that's the show I'm talking about. I was like about to get on stage, and people are like, "You do this every day." It's like, that's true, but that one was different because I don't, you don't play right before Ben Gibbard every day. But
no, and I think anyone that would be understandably nervous. Also, love that you covered Photo Booth and didn't do like "I Will Follow You Into the Dark" or one of those.
Well,
Photo Booth is one of my favorite Death Cab songs.
Same. I saw them. I actually can't take credit for that because the AV Club has like pre-selected songs.
Oh, okay.
But I was happy to see that they chose a deep cut, like Forbidden Love EP. Who knows that unless you're a true diehard fan?
Yeah.
And so when I saw that one, I immediately chose it. Then we got put up for support on the show, and I was afraid that the band would think, "Oh, we got this like fangirl that's playing with us." But they were so kind.
Yeah, I would imagine he would be nice. He's one of the people I would love to meet.
He's so tall.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't expect him to be as tall as he was, and I'm 5 foot barely, So I was looking straight up the whole time.
Cool. Well, again, one of the reasons that I love Sprained Ankle is it has the power to start some really powerful conversations on a variety of topics. What would you say is one of the most important conversations that this album could possibly start?
Oh, goodness. I feel like sorry, I want to answer you articulately, so I don't want to just rush in and start spewing a bunch of nonsense. One of the most important conversations that this album could tackle, well, there's several, and I feel like I would do a disservice to one by elevating any above the rest, because maybe it's less about that I want to have a particular soapbox about religion or the LGBT community or substance abuse or mental health, but maybe that the thing that all of those things have in common is that they are taboo or uncomfortable subjects that don't necessarily need to be. That when we allow ourselves a little bit of vulnerability, we make it possible to approach subjects that might make us uncomfortable or afraid in a way that provides actual solutions for them, And again, like, I would never think of like this album tackling important issues as if I am sitting as a wise philosopher disseminating information to my audience. I think what's more important is the admission of fear and uncertainty and doubt that we are in it together. As I'm not giving you some wisdom that I've learned through my songs. I'm just telling you that I have it figured out as little as you, so we can work on it together.
Well, that's really powerful. I love that answer. So this is, you're under 20, I'm under 20, or you're 20, under 21, I should say.
Okay.
I'm under 21 as well. One of the things I love to ask younger artists, especially younger artists making this music, is, has it made it any more difficult to gain legitimacy? Because like, no one looks at One Direction and goes, "Can you believe that those guys are like, 19? It's like, yeah, I can. But you put out something like Sprained Ankle and it's like, you have wisdom sort of beyond your years. Has it made it tough to get people to take you more seriously?
Interestingly, sometimes, when I was very young, I used to, and sometimes I still see this happen, especially people use the age not as a reason to be dismissive, but as a qualifier for the...
It's good for their age.
Yeah. And I fear that because, I read, I think it was the book by Meg Wolitzer that is about the transition from gifted kids when they're good for their age, like prodigies, into like successful adults, like, and you just become, you're good for your age, but that kind of limits the worth of it. It's like, oh, well, you're 20. Or as if that is some kind of like, oh, she also has 3 arms. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Like a novelty almost. Which I wouldn't say, but it's true. I am 20 years old, so when they make comments like that, I can't argue with them. But I've found that people are genuinely, they're not condescending in any way, I've been fortunate with, sometimes people ask me if I've had negative experiences with that or any number of things in the music industry, and maybe I lucked out somehow. I don't know. Well, but so many of the people I've met have been just genuinely kind and wonderful to be around, like.
Well, that's good, and I share the same worry, sort of like, going from childhood to adulthood and hoping we can keep the train on the track.
Yeah, exactly.
You have a lot going on. Julien Baker, Forrester, also sort of in the middle of college. What do you think might be next? Do you think a Forrester album, a Julien album, a degree, or if you've had time to think about it? I don't mean to sound like a parent here.
No, you're fine. You're fine. It's interesting. Thanksgiving now. It's like everybody is doing their job that's like a doctor saving lives, and I'm just like, well, I tour, I play guitar for a living, but so I was on campus in college last fall, and then I was taking online courses in the spring, and during the summer I was taking some time to think about like prioritizing things, because I don't want to, I think I'm going to end up taking some time off of school. I spoke to my advisors, and they were all unanimously encouraging me to just pursue this while it's an opportunity, because it has a shorter window. Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong about that. I mean, what is it that knowledge without experience is food without sustenance, right? So if you learn a bunch of theoretical knowledge and you do not supplement it with experience, I think it's void. So I would love to accrue as much experience as is available to me until I return back to school at whatever point, which I intend on doing. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm just touring solidly through the end of the year, and then we'll figure it out. I'm just trying to stay on top of all the travel plans and arrangements, and make sure that when I'm home, I'm taking care of family and priorities, stuff like that. So we'll see what comes of next year with the record or what have you.
Perfect. Well, we're coming into the home stretch here. I'm going to ask you the 3 questions that I've been asking everyone this festival.
Okay, sure.
Conventions. The RNC was just held, so I have to ask some sort of party type question. Melania plagiarizes Michelle. If you could plagiarize any artist, take a song, it's only known as a Julien Baker song, what song do you think that might be?
Any artist known as a Julien Baker song. That's the question, right?
Yeah. What song would you take? Yeah.
What song would I take? Options by Pedro the Lion, hands down. That song is so amazing.
That is a good one.
I'm also happy at how that question turned. I was like, oh no, is this about to be a really polarizing political question?
Yeah,
and then it ended up just being about Pedro the Lion. So that's great.
Good. I think T.W. Walsh is from Boston, so we always love, that's one of our claims to fame.
That's awesome.
And then Newport is all about collaboration. If you could take the stage with someone, either on the bill or just in general, who would you want to take the stage with?
Oh, goodness. It's always interesting when I think about collaborations, because one thing that I'm reserved about is like thinking, why would they ever collaborate with me? Actually, one of my friends, Lucy Dacus, she's an artist out of Virginia, and we've played several shows together and just become friends over touring. I would love to like collaborate with her in some way. I know that's like a contemporary artist, not like a classic artist, but I find myself most inspired by people who I have knowledge of their personality as well, and I can see that come through in their songs. And so knowing her as a person, I think, makes me want to just know more about her, you know.
Perfect. And then what song do you hear the most about? People come up to you and say, this song, to quote Bob Boileau, this song changed my life, or something like that.
It's crazy. People bring up Rejoice a lot.
That's a great one.
Oh, man. I think it's just because that one is less veiled in purple prosaic imagery and more direct, but I try to do that one in every single set, because that's the one that people will like message me about, and which is cool, because I used to have a lot of apprehensions about playing that song, and now it's the one I'm most glad that I
put out there.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So.
And then my last question for you, who are you listening to? Who has Julien Baker's ear right now?
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, Lucy Dacus, obviously. And then, I'm so into Savages.
Adore is one of my favorite songs.
Oh my goodness.
Right?
They're a perfect band. I say that about so many people. I think I just love musicians so much that I'm like, oh no, it's perfect. It's great. It's wonderful.
Oh, I met Father John Misty yesterday and freaked out, so I'm on the same level as you.
Yeah, absolutely. That record, all of it. It's so great. And like reading Ginny Beth interviews, that's another thing. I loved the record musically, then I started reading interviews with them, and hearing all of the things that they say, it sounds rehearsed, even though I know there's no way it can be. It's just like brilliant, intellectual, meaningful motivation behind the songs, and I'm into it. I saw him at Primavera Sound, and she was like walking on heads.
Yeah, my
so
English
amazing.
teacher, Mrs. Kaloran, saw them at
That's
Paradise.
the cool. Whoa, can we back up to where you had the coolest English teacher of all time?
Oh, she played a song at the beginning of every class, introduced the class to different music. She introduced me to Savages. I said, you have to listen to something. The album is called Sprained Ankle by Julien Baker.
Oh, no way.
That was the trade. And then so she loved it. I know that our listeners will love it too. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us
Of course,
today.
it was my honor.